Tonight, it is not over, not by a long shot. President Trump signing the executive order to end separation of families at the border, but this is just the start of a long odyssey to reunite families and also fend off the coming legal challenges. Also, we take a look at the politics of it all. Polls show the vast majority of people, they're against the separation policy, and this issue is not going away anytime soon. Will this make it even harder for Republicans to fend off Democrats and keep control of Congress? Then, Michael Bloomberg is back, or at least his checkbook. He is pouring big bucks into the midterms to help the Democrats. But the question is, will it make a difference? Our political panel is here to discuss and debate. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French, and thank you for joining us this Thursday night. Immigration and splitting families at the border is once again our lead this evening. In a few minutes, I'll give you my 2 cents. But first, our senior political correspondent, Andrew Whitman, is here with the very latest out of D.C. Andrew?
Rich, thank you. The situation is still very uncertain for thousands of kids who are being detained, and it sounds like the administration is planning for things to get a lot worse. According to the Washington Post, the White House is asking the Pentagon to consider housing up to 20,000 kids at military installations. It's unclear why that many beds are needed. But a couple of things are clear. This thing is far from over. Another thing that's pretty clear, don't hold your breath waiting for Congress to do anything to solve the immigration crisis.
The bill is not passed.
The immigration debate taking center stage in Washington, but one GOP bill falling flat and not much hope for another measure that will be voted on tomorrow.
Even if we get something out of here, you need 9 Democrats to stop trying to stop things and voting with us, and I don't see that happening.
House Speaker Paul Ryan and President Trump blaming Democrats, even though Republicans control the House and Senate.
My administration is also acting swiftly to address the illegal immigration crisis on the southern border. Loopholes in our immigration laws, all supported by extremist open border Democrats.
The latest debate over what to do about illegal immigrants crossing the border seeking asylum coming to a head amid outrage over more than 2,300 migrant children taken from their families. The president signing an executive order to stop his own policy of separating families, but without a plan for what happens to those already split up.
He didn't even mention 2,400 kids. What is he going to do with them?
They should not be incarcerated. They're children.
Today, dozens of kids descended on Capitol Hill, wrapped in Mylar blankets, mimicking images of those migrant children held in cages. The First Lady previously speaking out against the policy, and today visiting a center for immigrant children in Texas.
I also like to ask you how I can help to these children to reunite with their families.
Hundreds of kids who were separated from their families have been sent to our area. Mayor Bill de Blasio joined a delegation of other mayors visiting a holding facility in Texas today, but they were turned away and were not allowed in.
From California to New York, 2,300 children separated from their parents at the border since May, waiting in facilities like this and in foster care with no timeline or clear plan to reunite them with their families.
These kids have been traumatized.
With the only images coming from inside these shelters provided by the government, 20 mayors from across the country showing up at this facility along the border in Texas, requesting a firsthand look and action from the administration.
Yesterday was the right thing to do, but it leaves as many questions unanswered as it resolves.
First Lady Melania Trump bringing her own questions to this shelter in Texas, making a surprise visit Thursday afternoon.
How many times they speak with their relatives?
Bianca Ortanes Lopez from El Salvador says she last spoke with her 8-year-old son Abel 2 months ago when she was detained. Saying they told me to say bye to him. To this day, I don't know where he went. She is still hoping for a moment like this. 10-year-old Samuel separated from his father 8 months ago, silent and overwhelmed as he was finally reunited with his family in Guatemala.
It may be even difficult once they're reunited with their parents. It may take a long time for this trauma to be resolved and these children to be healed.
Mayor de Blasio says the federal government didn't even tell him it was sending kids to New York City, and he's demanding answers about where they are from and how they can be reunited with their families. Rich?
Thank you, Andrew. Here now where I stand. Much as the president's forced executive order yesterday, rambling press conference today, and glorified photo op by the First Lady in Texas were intended to communicate all's well and nothing to see here, the fact is it couldn't be further from the truth. Now, I'm curious. For any visitor to a Trump property, you can't help but be bombarded by magazine covers that have one thing in common: self-promotion. It's all about the Donald. In fact, Trump loves these so much, it turns out he even created a fake Time magazine cover and plastered it in multiple clubs on multiple continents. I wonder if he will put this week's Time issue on prominent display. And this one is real. You see two people there, that crying 2-year-old Honduran girl being lorded over by our president. Now, I have a strong suspicion that won't be hung proudly in Mar-a-Lago, nor should it. He should be ashamed, and we should be ashamed, for abetting this modern-day Katrina. Now, the tragedy of Katrina was, of course, multifold. It was a natural disaster, but the ineptitude and the absence of urgency in the aftermath, it led Americans to rightfully ask why certain people in certain places didn't rate. America's best efforts were not seen on that fateful episode. All that said, this administration's choice, and that's what it was a choice, to separate families and hold children in cages, all for political hostage-taking, was and is worse. A hurricane happened to us. I condemn the Bush administration for their handling, but I never believed that George Bush hated black people as was alleged. I can't believe I'm saying this in 2018, but I don't believe we can say the same about our current commander-in-chief. Now, forget for a moment what he said about Muslims. Forget what he referred to the entire African continent as S-hole countries. Just consider what he has said about our neighbors to the south.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
I have had horrible rulings. I've been treated very unfairly by this judge. Now, this judge is of Mexican heritage. I'm building a wall.
So no Mexican judge could ever be involved in a case that involves you?
He's a member of a society where, very pro-Mexico, and that's fine. It's all fine. But
Except that you're calling into question his heritage.
I think he should recuse himself.
It's common sense. They don't want these people, so they send them to the United States, because the United States is run by stupid people. Some are good, and some are rapists, and some are killers, and we don't even know what we're getting.
He recently said these people were infecting America. He's talking about children in that group, that they're infecting us. So we know how he feels about brown people. We also know he cannot be trusted about why he put this national shame into motion. How dishonest this White House has been on separating families? Well, here's a very abbreviated rundown. Here's the president on Friday saying only Congress can change the policy and it can't be done by executive order.
Now, wait, you can't do it through an executive order.
Okay, now here's Trump yesterday signing that executive order. He says we'll do just that. So which one is it? Well, don't ask this administration. Here is another question this White House answers every which way, but in a way that we can believe. Separating families at the border, they are doing this as a deterrent, you ask? Well, Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen was so reportedly offended by such a question, she said this on Monday.
Are you intending to send a message?
I find that offensive. No, because why would I ever create a policy that purposely does that?
Perhaps it's a deterrent.
No.
The audacity of the question. Maybe she should have asked her predecessor at Homeland Security and now Chief of Staff John Kelly. Originally, he sold the idea as a deterrent, and he did so 14 months before they put the policy into place.
If you get some young kids who are coming in, managed to sneak into the United States with their parents, our Department of Homeland Security personnel going to separate the children from their moms and dads?
Yes, I am considering, in order to deter more movement along this terribly dangerous network, I am considering exactly that.
You don't even have to go back to last year. The same day that Nielsen was so offended by the question, the Attorney General said it was done for just that purpose, to be a deterrent, to keep the kids and their families out. Now, we also have another known with this story. Donald Trump and his administration do not know where all these children they have taken are and they don't know where many of their parents are as well. I want to repeat that for a second. The president doesn't know where all the kids are, and they also don't know where their parents are. Our president did not create illegal immigration. I'm not saying anything of the sort. But because he thought blackmailing Democrats and even some Republicans with caged children would get them his insipid wall, he now owns his self-created humanitarian crisis. This story, as I said from the top, is not nearly over. In fact, trust me, it's only beginning. And this all brings me to my final point. For many out there, you may have a job you don't like, you might even hate it, but it puts food on the table and you may not have another choice. I get it. But being a member of Congress is no such vocation. Everyone will tell you, whether they're a member of the House or the Senate, that they don't do it for the paycheck and they can make more in the private sector. And almost in every case, they're telling you the truth. So if you believe beyond the naked ambition of some of the worst legislators that most have some pursuit of public service, I ask, do they have no shame? To these Republicans on your screen, running for re-election, most of you have said that you oppose parent-child separation. But how many times in the past and going forward will you be forced to defend supporting Nazis, attacking our allies, and cozying up with brutal dictators? How about slandering races, ethnicities, and entire continents? How many times will you look away when attacks on our institutions, our rule of law, and our good name are done by this president? How many more crying kids before you say, I'm not with him? Do you really need the job that bad? Coming up next, I'll bring in our guest, ABC News political director Rick Klein, about what's going on Capitol Hill relating to immigration reform and the political fallout from all of this. Will this issue drag on and also potentially drag down Republicans come the midterms?